Backyard barbecue, summer evening, kids slapping their arms raw. The citronella candles are burning. They are doing absolutely nothing. Your neighbor Dave spent $400 this season alone. Foggers, chemical sprays, electric zappers, the works. The mosquitoes were back in 3 days. Every single time. However, 1 mile down the road, an Amish farm sits in the same county, under the same humid sky, with the same standing water in the ditches, and not a single person on that property got one bite all summer long. No chemicals, no electricity, no monthly pest control contract, just a $2 black bucket and knowledge most people quietly forgot decades ago. That was last July. By August, 3 families on that same street had copied the exact setup and reported the same result. This video gives you every detail of that system, step by step, so your yard gets the same outcome before your next cookout. Here is the part the pest control industry never puts in its brochures. When you spray a fogger across your backyard, you are killing adult mosquitoes. That part works. The problem is what happens next. A single female mosquito can lay between 100 and 300 eggs per batch. She needs almost no water to do it. A bottle cap, a clogged gutter, a low spot in your lawn after rain. The eggs hatch into larvae within 24 to 48 hours. So 3 days after your $80 fogging treatment, a fresh generation is already swimming in water you never noticed. You are not solving the problem. You are running on a treadmill that the mosquitoes built for you. Most yards have dozens of hidden breeding sites that homeowners never check. Gutters packed with leaf debris, saucers under potted plants, folded tarps, kids' toys left outside, a cracked bird bath that never fully drains, a low divot in the lawn where rainwater pools for 2 days before soaking in. Any container that holds even a small amount of standing water becomes a nursery. The mosquitoes do not need a pond, they need a puddle, and your yard is full of puddles you have stopped seeing because they have always been there. There is another cost that almost nobody talks about. Broad-spectrum insecticides do not read labels. They kill mosquitoes, yes. They also kill honeybees foraging in nearby flowers. They kill fireflies drifting across your lawn at dusk. They kill ground beetles that spend their entire lives eating pest larvae in your soil. The collateral damage is real, measurable, and documented. The companies selling you monthly spray contracts are not required to mention it. Most of them do not. The technician pulls up in the truck, sprays the perimeter, hands you a receipt, and drives away. What dies in the next 48 hours beyond the target species is not on the invoice. And here is the part that should genuinely alarm you. Mosquito populations in many regions of the United States are developing measurable resistance to the same chemical compounds that have been used for decades. The products are not working as well as they did 10 years ago. Researchers at universities across the Southeast have documented it in peer-reviewed studies. The mosquitoes are adapting. Their biology is shifting in response to chemical pressure, the same way bacteria adapt to antibiotics. The industry keeps selling you the same solution anyway, because the solution is not designed to end the problem. It is designed to manage it indefinitely, one monthly invoice at a time. So the modern approach to mosquito control is expensive, temporary, ecologically damaging, and increasingly ineffective. That is not an opinion. That is the documented outcome of how the system actually works. And it raises an obvious question. If a community that uses no synthetic chemicals and no electrical devices manage to eliminate mosquito pressure from an entire property, what do they know that the rest of us forgot? If you had asked anyone in Lancaster County about biological mosquito control back in 1990, they would have told you it was fringe science, something for university labs and government programs. They had no idea what was already living in the soil beneath their feet. Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis. Scientists call it BTI. It is a naturally occurring bacterium found in soil samples around the world. It was first isolated in the Negev Desert in Israel in 1976 by researcher Yoel Margalit, who was studying microbial life in arid environments and found something unexpected in a dry riverbed sample. He collected the sample in a small glass vial, labeled it by hand, and brought it back to the lab without any particular expectation. What he found inside changed public health mosquito control permanently. It does not look like much. It is microscopic. It produces no odor. It has no color. But inside that bacterium are protein crystals that are, to a mosquito larva, completely and irreversibly lethal. Here is the mechanism. A mosquito larva feeds by filtering water. That is how it eats. It sweeps organic particles into its mouth continuously, processing the water column around it. When BTI is present in that water, the larva ingests the protein crystals along with everything else. Those crystals bind to specific receptor sites in the larva's gut lining. The binding triggers a cascade. The gut wall ruptures. Fluids leak into the body cavity. The larva dies within hours, not days, hours. The process is precise, targeted, and irreversible. Read that again. The gut ruptures. The larva dies within hours. And here is the critical detail that separates BTI from every synthetic chemical on the market. Those receptor sites exist only in the digestive systems of mosquito larvae, black fly larvae, and a small number of closely related species. They do not exist in humans. They do not exist in dogs, cats, or livestock. They do not exist in fish. They do not exist in honeybees or butterflies or any of the beneficial insects your garden depends on. The EPA reviewed the full body of research and registered BTI as safe for use around all of those species. It is approved for certified organic gardening. You can use it in a rain barrel that feeds a vegetable garden. You can use it in a pond stocked with fish. The fish will not be harmed. The plants will not be affected. The only thing that dies is the mosquito larva. The question people always ask is about bees. If this kills insects, why doesn't it kill bees? The answer is feeding biology. BTI works in stagnant water. That is where mosquito larvae live and feed, suspended in the water column, filtering particles. Honeybees do not visit stagnant water to feed. They visit flowers. Their gut biology is fundamentally different. Their feeding environment is different. The protein crystals that destroy a mosquito larva's gut lining have no binding site in a bee's digestive system. The two species simply do not overlap in any way that creates risk. This is not a loophole or a technicality. It is the reason BTI became the foundation of large-scale public health mosquito programs across the United States and throughout Europe, including the Rhine Valley program in Germany that treated over 30,000 acres of floodplain annually without measurable impact on non-target species. You can buy BTI right now at any major hardware store. It is sold under two common brand names. Mosquito dunks are donut-shaped rings that float on water and release BTI slowly over 30 days. Mosquito bits are granules you can sprinkle directly into standing water or dry areas that flood periodically. A bag of mosquito bits runs between $10 and $15. A pack of mosquito dunks costs roughly the same. For less than $30, you have enough BTI to treat an average residential property for an entire season. The Amish communities that have used this approach for years did not discover BTI through a marketing campaign. They found it through the same process they apply to most problems. They looked for what worked in nature, they tested it quietly, and they kept using it when it worked. No contract, no monthly fee, no technician in a truck. Just a substance that has existed in soil for thousands of years, doing exactly what it has always done. And then the method made the one decision that changed everything. Instead of just dropping BTI into existing water sources and hoping for the best, the system created a dedicated breeding trap, a controlled environment designed to attract egg-laying females and eliminate every larva before it ever reached adulthood. The bucket became the weapon. But this wasn't just about BTI anymore. Once families started deploying the full trap system across entire properties, the results started attracting attention from people well outside the Amish community, and the implications for suburban mosquito control were bigger than anyone had anticipated. It is a Tuesday afternoon in late June. The yard is quiet. The air smells like cut grass and heat. A lawnmower idles somewhere 2 streets over, then cuts off. Somewhere closer, a screen door bangs shut. This is where the operation begins. The bucket sits in the shade near the fence line. Dark green. 5 gallons. Unremarkable. Nobody walking past would give it a second glance. That is exactly the point. The mosquito doesn't see a trap. She sees a breeding pool. She sees standing water warmed by proximity to dark plastic. She smells the faint, fermenting exhale of decomposing organic matter rising from the surface. She follows the carbon dioxide trail like a compass needle finding north, and she lands. Here is how it works. You take a dark-colored 5-gallon bucket, black or dark green, not white, not yellow, not translucent. Color matters more than most people expect. Dark surfaces absorb heat from ambient air and sunlight. Warmer water signals a stable, productive breeding site to a female mosquito searching for the right conditions to deposit her eggs. A white bucket in the same location, in the same shade, will run several degrees cooler. That temperature difference is enough to reduce attraction significantly. The physics are simple, the outcome is not. You fill the bucket halfway with water, then you add a handful of grass clippings or dead leaves. Not much, just enough to cover the surface loosely. The organic matter begins to break down almost immediately. Within 24 to 48 hours, it releases a faint but measurable plume of carbon dioxide and organic scent compounds, the same compounds produced by any natural stagnant pool that has been sitting long enough to develop a microbial community. To a female mosquito in egg-laying mode, this smells like opportunity. It mimics the exact chemical signature of a productive breeding site. She is not flying randomly. She is following a signal. Your bucket is broadcasting that signal on the right frequency. Then comes the BTI, 1 heaping tablespoon of mosquito bits scattered across the surface. The granules float. They don't sink immediately. They drift slowly, dispersing across the water. Watch them spread from the center outward, carried by the faint surface tension of the water. They settle into a loose, even layer. And when the larvae hatch, because they will hatch, that is the whole idea, the granules are among the first things those larvae encounter in the water column. They ingest the BTI spores as part of their normal filter-feeding behavior. The toxin activates in their gut within hours. They die before they can develop into pupae, before they can emerge, before they can fly, before they can bite anyone. The trap converts a breeding site into a dead end. Every generation that enters it ends there. But the bucket wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because the trap doesn't just kill the larvae already inside it, it keeps drawing in new females. Week after week. The scent persists. The CO2 persists. The dark surface keeps the water warm. The trap keeps working as long as you maintain it, and maintenance is almost nothing. Placement is not an afterthought. It is the strategy. The bucket goes in shade. Direct sunlight evaporates the water too fast and degrades the BTI through UV exposure. It goes away from foot traffic and living areas. You are not trying to attract mosquitoes toward your patio. You are intercepting them before they get there. Fence lines work. Garden edges work. The strip of ground between your yard and the tree line works perfectly. These are the corridors mosquitoes travel. They fly low, within 3 feet of the ground, following scent gradients inward from property edges. You are setting up a checkpoint on that path. Maintenance is simple. Every 2 to 4 weeks, you refresh the water and add a new tablespoon of mosquito bits. After heavy rain, you check it, dilution weakens the BTI concentration, and a diluted trap is a less effective trap. You don't need to dump and restart every time. You just top it off, add more granules, and walk away. The whole process takes about 90 seconds. Lift the lid if you have one, pour in a half gallon of fresh water to compensate for evaporation, scatter the granules from a tablespoon held about a foot above the surface so they spread evenly, and set the lid back. Done. A single bag of mosquito bits costs around $12 to $15 and contains enough material to maintain 1 bucket for an entire season. One homeowner in rural Ohio, a woman named Carol, who had tried citronella candles, propane traps costing over $200, and monthly spray services that ran her nearly $600 across the summer, set up her first dark bucket trap on a Thursday in early July. She placed it at the back fence corner in the shade of a silver maple, about 40 feet from her patio. She pressed the bucket into the soft ground slightly so it wouldn't tip in wind, scattered the first tablespoon of mosquito bits across the surface, and watched the granules drift apart in a slow spiral before settling. By the following weekend, she reported a noticeable drop in mosquito activity near the fence. By the end of the month, she had stopped buying candles entirely. She set up a second bucket along the side yard in August, positioning it at the gap in the hedgerow where the neighbor's yard bled into hers, and the afternoon shade pooled longest. The difference, she said, was not subtle. The bucket looked like nothing. It sat there in the shade, doing its job. Invisible, patient, lethal. A single female mosquito can lay up to 300 eggs in one batch. She can lay multiple batches across her lifetime. One bucket, positioned correctly, can intercept dozens of egg-laying females per week. The math compounds fast. You are not just killing individual mosquitoes. You are collapsing future generations before they exist. Each larva that dies in that bucket represents 300 mosquitoes that will never emerge, never bite, never lay their own eggs. The effect is exponential in reverse. Someone would look back on this moment and wish they had made a different call. Specifically, the decision to place the bucket near the patio instead of the fence line. The trap still worked, but it worked less efficiently because it was pulling mosquitoes toward the living space rather than intercepting them at the property edge. Placement is not optional, it is the mechanism. One bucket is a good start, but one bucket covers a limited radius. One bucket handles one corridor. One bucket is a single checkpoint on a property with multiple entry points. The mosquitoes that don't find the first bucket keep flying. They reach the patio. They find the people. Up to this point, the single bucket approach had been winning. That was about to flip. The property is a standard suburban lot, roughly a quarter acre. Surrounded on 3 sides by neighbors, on the 4th by a drainage ditch running along the back fence. This is the terrain. These are the stakes. There is a reason this story is still talked about today, because what the Amish figured out, and what suburban homeowners are only now beginning to understand, is that one trap is a single point of defense on a property with multiple vulnerabilities. Mosquitoes don't enter from one direction. They enter from everywhere. From the neighbor's yard, from the street drainage, from the tree line, from the low wet corner behind the garage where the downspout empties and the ground never fully dries. One bucket catches some of them, 3 buckets catch most of them, and the difference between some and most is the difference between a tolerable summer and one spent indoors, swatting at your ankles through the screen door. The rule is simple. Minimum 3 buckets for an average suburban lot, 1 per side of the property, not clustered together, not lined up along one fence, distributed, spread, positioned to intercept mosquitoes before they reach the house, not after. Think of it as a perimeter interception system. Mosquitoes fly low, typically within 3 feet of the ground. They follow scent trails and CO2 gradients inward from property edges. They are moving from the outside in. Your buckets need to be positioned at those entry points, at the corners, along the fence lines, near the drainage ditch, near the tree line, at the gap in the hedge where the neighbor's yard bleeds into yours and the shade holds moisture all afternoon. Spacing matters more than most people realize. Buckets placed too close together compete with each other. They draw from the same mosquito population, overlap their scent plumes, and collectively underperform. The recommended spacing is 30 to 50 feet between buckets. At that distance, each bucket commands its own zone. Each one intercepts a distinct corridor. Together, they form a net rather than a cluster. A net with gaps is still a net. A cluster is just a single point. For larger properties, the math scales. 1 additional bucket per extra 1,000 square feet of yard. 1 additional bucket per significant cluster of trees or shrubs because dense vegetation holds moisture, creates shade, and functions as a mosquito staging area where adults rest during the heat of the day before moving toward hosts at dusk. A half-acre lot with a mature tree line along the back might need 5 buckets. An acre lot with mixed landscaping might need 7 or 8. The cost remains low. Each bucket setup runs roughly $8 to $12 in materials. The BTI refills cost pennies per treatment. The entire perimeter system for a quarter-acre lot runs under $40 for the season. The positioning logic follows the mosquito's own behavior. She is not flying randomly, she is following gradients. Warmth, CO2, organic scent. She is moving purposefully from her resting site toward a host or a breeding pool. Your buckets need to intercept that path before she completes it. A bucket placed at the back fence corner catches mosquitoes entering from the drainage ditch. A bucket near the side gate catches mosquitoes drifting in from the street. A bucket along the garden edge catches the ones emerging from the neighbor's overgrown shrubs at dusk, when the air cools and they begin to move. If you are wondering how that is even possible, the fact that a $12 bucket of standing water outperforms a $200 propane mosquito trap in independent field comparisons, the answer is targeting. The propane trap uses CO2 cartridges to simulate a warm-blooded host. It is designed to attract mosquitoes looking for a blood meal. The dark bucket trap uses CO2 plus heat plus organic scent to simulate a breeding site. And a female mosquito in egg-laying mode is not looking for a host. She is looking for water. She is looking for exactly what the bucket offers. You are not competing with her instincts. You are using them against her. The 3-bucket perimeter doesn't eliminate every mosquito. Nothing does. But it systematically reduces the population entering the property week over week. Each generation intercepted is a generation that never reproduces. The effect compounds across a season. By late August, families running the full perimeter system report reductions of 60 to 80% in mosquito activity compared to untreated yards. Not a marginal improvement, a transformation. There is a detail that matters here, one that gets overlooked every time someone sets this system up in a hurry. The spacing between buckets, specifically that 30 to 50-foot window, would come back to haunt anyone who ignored it. Buckets placed 15 feet apart along the same fence line look like a perimeter. They are not a perimeter. They are a cluster with extra steps, and the mosquitoes entering from the other 3 sides of the property never encounter them at all. One family in suburban Georgia learned this the hard way in mid-July, when they lined up 4 buckets along the back fence, left the side yards completely unguarded, and spent the rest of the month wondering why the system wasn't working. It was working. It was just aimed in one direction while the mosquitoes came from 3 others. They repositioned on a Saturday morning, 1 bucket to the back left corner, 1 to the back right, 1 near the side gate, 1 along the garden strip facing the street, and reported a measurable difference within 10 days. The back fence line had been a fortress. The rest of the yard had been wide open. Repositioning closed the gaps. But that is getting ahead of the story. Flush them out. The real question isn't how to repel them. It's where they hide.